So it's the time of year when we start to switch our footwear over from sneakers, boots, etc. to things like flip-flops, or you're probably spending a lot more time barefoot, which I personally think is fantastic. It lets your feet spread out, it lets your muscles work in a different way. But anyway, switching your shoes asks the muscles in your feet and your lower legs to react a little bit differently, to activate a little bit differently than they do when you're stuck in a sneaker or a boot or even high heels on a regular basis. So today we're going to do a little foot rolling sequence, and you can follow along. So I'm using one of these high bounce, real fancy 99-cent pinky rubber balls, and you're going to want something that's this texture or close, that has a little bit of give and squish, so not a lacrosse ball, not a baseball, but something like this you could try with a tennis ball. It's going to have a little bit less, or more give than a ball like this, but it'll work okay. So the first thing you're going to do is take your ball underneath 1 foot, and you're just going to roll back and forth. There you go, just kind of lightly from the heel of your foot, ball of your foot, to your toes. Good, and then you might do just a little zigzag side to side, just kind of feeling out, getting the sides of your feet, the inner arch, kind of the outer edge. Good, and then you can slow it down, sink your weight into the ball a little bit more as you roll back and forth. Okay, and then you're going to take your ball directly under your heel, and just like you're trying to squish that ball, you're going to sink your weight of your heel into the ball, and then you're just going to wiggle your heel back and forth. And then lift your foot off, just give your ball a second to reinflate itself if you're using something that holds that squished shape. And then you're going to take your ball up to your metatarsals, which is kind of this middle part of your foot, the ball of your foot, and these bones that go from that first knuckle of your toes down to kind of, the arch of your foot. And so your ball is going to land right underneath those metatarsals. And then almost like you're trying to create like an undulation or like a wave in those bones of your foot, you're going to apply some pressure and just kind of shift side to side. And see if you can actually feel that in your bones. It's almost like you're moving your bones like this. So our feet are gliding joints, so we want to encourage that motion of gliding and sliding. And you can go back and forth. Good, and then slide your ball up just a little bit further. And then with your toes, almost like you're trying to crunch and pick up your ball, you're going to squeeze your toes into your ball and then open them out really wide. And squeeze and open. And squeeze and open. Good, and then roll just a little bit to the side so you're getting like your middle, second, and pinky toe. You're gonna do that same thing 3, maybe 4 times. Just squeezing, trying to grip that ball with your toes like you've got talons, and opening. And squeezing and opening. Good, and one more time, squeezing and opening. Good, and then you're gonna roll your ball up even just a little bit further. And so now the ball of my foot is on the ground, and my big toe and my second toe and a little bit of my middle toe are on the ball. And you might start to feel a stretch in the bottom of your foot already. And so you can stay here and hold this way, or keeping the ball of your foot on the ground, you can lift your heel. And so that should give you a pretty good stretch along the toes and the whole bottom of the foot, depending on what your feet are like, what kind of shoes you wear, how often you're barefoot. And then same thing You're just gonna roll it over a little bit so you're catching the smaller toes of your foot. And usually this is a little bit more intense for the smaller toes and that outside edge of your foot. Good. And then take a minute, foot off the ball. Just stand with your feet hips distance apart. You might do a little rock back and forth. Just notice how your first foot feels compared to the foot that you haven't rolled yet. And then I like to finish off this sequence. I take the tops of my toes to the floor and then just give my ankle a little bit of a circle. And so this is really great for the top of your foot and the tendons that go in the top of your foot that are responsible for bringing your toes back towards your shin. And this is also really great for the retinaculum of your ankle, which is what holds all of those tendons in place. And so you can keep circling, go in the opposite direction of what you were doing at first. And then sometimes I like to pause and just kind of lean into it a little bit, so getting a little bit more of a static stretch. Good. And then bring that foot back to the floor again, and you'll repeat that same sequence on the opposite foot, and I hope you enjoy. Let me know how it feels.